buddy and I thought it'd be a nice day to come out and take a look at the Bantam crane, the 35T, on the World War II 6x6 truck. I think this was my grandfather's favorite machine to run, and I've had the pleasure of seeing him run it on multiple occasions. And it is going to be a little too cold to start this today, but it does run. And if we get a nice 70-degree day out here this winter, I'll get out here and run it and start it up and show you how. I need to actually let some tension off the cables and pull some slack in them so that I can shut this door and keep the moisture off the clutches and everything in there. But there it is. It's a Bantam T35 truck mounted crane. And my grandfather was definitely the most proficient person with this machine where he worked in the 50s and 60s. And he used it for everything from a clamshell bucket to a drag line to this orange peel bucket here to dig wells. So here's a view of the other side of the engine compartment, and as you can see, there's those extra elevator weights that are in here on top of the concrete floor. And there's the other side of the Leroy engine, 4-cylinder gasoline engine. And astute viewers would notice there's a lot of water well components in here, and that's because this crane's main priority was digging a lot of irrigation and shallow water wells. So my grandfather used this machine for, well, just about everything that the job required. They had a dragline bucket, a clamshell bucket, which was actually a little too heavy, and I'll showcase that in another video for this machine, but they did use it to unload coke, which is like a coal, hotter burning coal that they used in the foundry where he worked. And this bucket is very unique. It was used, it opens up like a orange peel, they call it, and it's to dig out in 4-foot well casings. And I'll demonstrate in another video exactly how that worked. The place that he worked actually made those well casings and dug and installed wells. He would have somebody sit in the truck here, and when he would honk the horn, they would pull forward, and then he'd honk the horn again to stop. And that would be somebody's job, to sit in this truck. But it wasn't uncommon for him to be sent out on a job, or drive this rig to the job, put it together, put the jib on the boom, and operate everything himself. And fortunately, he could swing the crane around enough to where he could exit the cab and just hop into the driver's seat and pull the truck ahead so they could continue digging or move to wherever the next position was that he had to work. Or maybe he needed to grab a well casing, in which case they would drop the bucket and use the holding line to pick up a well casing, set it, then hook up the bucket again and dig some more. And I see big stripes out here. I have I have pets that love tractors too. So back there is the 4-cylinder Leroy engine. And this one is operational. Up there you can see the front window, which I really should install to keep the moisture out of here. These machines set for quite some time and had rocks thrown at the windows and whatnot. It's rather unfortunate. And there's a nice scene from the operator's view. This crane has a homemade section in the middle to extend it, It could be set up in several different configurations. The floor in the back of this rig is actually full of concrete, but they've also added some elevator weights for a little bit of extra ballast, which my grandfather wasn't exactly too fond of. Basically, not because they're in there, but because of where they were. He said that the weight needed to be further back. And he would know. He was an expert with these. Still is. Same truck as the other one, a little bit later of a model. This has a solid suspension rather than the leaf springs, for stability, of course. And you can see the frame doubler that they put on here to hold this big crane. Grandpa told me many stories about using this winch on jobs. Oftentimes he would actually take the winch, run it out, and he told me the technique that he used. He'd take 3 of these giant steel pins and drive them in at different angles so that they meet in the middle, and hook the winch to it, and it'd actually hold the front of the machine. He could pull it around. A lot of times they just tied it down when he was lifting something that he probably shouldn't have. But even in his late 80s, I seen him operate this machine and have the old front of the truck clear up in the air. And he's back here calm as a cucumber. No thought given to it. That's just how he was, how he is. And there's a view from the outside into the operator's compartment. And you can see up there, they have a mirror so that the operator can actually look in that mirror and keep an eye on the gauges and the engine back there. So I imagine it was very busy and exhausting work, and I know that it was for a fact by watching him run it. Of course, you have your brakes and things, your swing drive for the big ring gear. You can see the swing in there. Very complicated to me, and kind of looks dangerous. I mean, you're literally inches away from these cables, and he'd shown me on several occasions where he would just reach over there, maybe something would get twisted, or he'd just reach over, grab the cable, flip them around, or hold tension in them. My, how things have changed since those days. These still have the original 6-cylinder straight 6 engine. Kind of problematic. I guess from what my grandfather says, they were often a lot of bent rods. I imagine that after he left, they weren't meticulously maintained as he would have kept them. You can see by the tag on the block that this motor's been rebuilt multiple occasions. It's kind of a rat's nest. This engine did sort of run, not great, years ago, but I haven't seen it run for a while. Really cool to just think of the dual lives that this truck has had, not only as a service vehicle in the military, but then its second life as a piece of construction equipment. You just building America in the after the war. And what's always cool to me, and even as a child, was to just be able to see all those layers of history in the paint. Looked like there was some primer, some OD green. Mr. Buddy the dog down here, he's seeing something. But just a wonderful piece of history, and just an amazing piece of history. Just like the other truck, they did add a brake booster back in there to help them stop. My grandfather recounted a very interesting tale one time. He was going down a particularly bumpy section of road, and one set of these duals just came out. The nut had came loose inside the hub, and it had walked out that set of duals with the axle in it, and it started rolling down the highway. And I guess from what he was explaining, it was on the driver's side, but while he was driving down the highway, he remembered looking out the window and seeing that set of duals just rolling up alongside of him. And of course, those days, he was the mechanic, so, you know, by the end of the day, they had it put back together, and he was well back on his way to the job. There it is, the 1945 military 6x6 GMC truck with the Bantam T35 crane. I do want to thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. It does help the channel out. And Buddy the dog, Big Stripes the cat, and I, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.